Hello, this is Ryan Black with Progressive Hub here with Heidi Jones. Heidi is an attorney and activist and writer in Buffalo, New York. How are you doing, Heidi?
I'm doing well. How are you, Ryan?
I am doing really well. So I wanted to talk to you today about India Walton and the mayoral race there in Buffalo. I guess to start things off, who is India Walton and why did she decide to primary the Democratic mayor of Buffalo?
Oh, big question. Okay, so India Walton is a longtime community activist. Before that, she was an RN and raised 4 boys in a very difficult situation. So she decided, she's been a part of the broad network of progressive organizations here in Buffalo that have been pushing for change for about 2 decades. And she joined in like 2000, somewhere in the 2015 range, and started working with her community in what's called the Fruit Belt neighborhood, which is just off the humongous Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus. And one of their first issues was the fact that the campus workers were invading the neighborhood for parking and also for cheap housing. So instead of the historically Black neighborhood, it was becoming gentrified with quickness, and housing costs were escalating very quickly. So she got together with her neighborhood and did a huge community organizing campaign and got a state law passed around parking permits in her neighborhood, and then also started the Fruit Belt Community Land Trust, which the city deeds land to hold while housing is built, and then that land is community owned.
Gotcha. So then what made her decide to run for mayor in a primary against when you already have a Democrat in office? It seems like things were working out okay, or no?
Well, Byron Brown has been in office at this point just shy of 16 years. That's 4 whole terms, and he's tied for the longest running mayor of Buffalo. And he thought he was going to just skate in for a 5th term. Instead, this broader community progressive coalition has been trying to work with City Hall for 2 decades and getting nowhere. And I mean nowhere. Anytime that we start pushing on a subject and somebody says something wrong, and Byron Brown shuts down that initiative. And I've seen that happen over and over. So instead of responding to any community needs, he's just handing out money to developers. For example, in one of the city agencies called the Buffalo Urban Renewal Agency has given out like $35 million over the past, over his administration, so 16 years. 20 million of it went to his developer friends who have contributed to his campaign.
Wow.
So yeah, it's no joke. Like, you think that Democratic politics, or all politicians are corrupt. But here we're seeing it in a very day-to-day way of how Byron Brown is gifting our city to major developers.
And has that been a pattern in his campaign as well? Is that continuing today with how he's running things now?
Well, there are 2 tracks, I think, that are really important about this campaign. First, he's taking the Trumpian tack of calling India a radical socialist and that people are scared of her. So both red baiting, fear mongering, and using a lot of very sexist and sexist tropes, and blending that with some real racism. And of course, Byron Brown is the first African-American mayor of Buffalo. So it's weird to be saying these things, but when you analyze the language he's using, it is both racist and sexist in that particular way that is used against Black women.
Gotcha. That is very awkward and weird dynamic there if he's doing that. Is the money situation also, like you talked about him, giving $20 million to his developer buddies? Are they kicking that back to him in this campaign? Is his campaign being, moneyed by developers and right wingers and business owners?
You bet. So in the week before the primary, when somebody realized that India really had a chance to win, his developer buddies threw in $140,000, right, all of it at once, and like massive amounts from each family. And then over the course of this general election, not only has he gotten maxed out on all of those families, and some of them live in California, some live in Florida, some live in DC. They're just flooding the area with money and doing significant independent expenditures. So the state real estate association threw in 170,000. Right, like these are just astounding numbers. Another, a Republican group, literally a Republican group from Virginia, threw in 30,000 for mailers.
Wow. Yeah, and these numbers are big when you consider that this is a mayoral race in a city with what, 250,000 people?
That's right.
Wow.
It is absolutely the most expensive race in Buffalo ever.
Like, oh yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, those are huge numbers. Thinking back to, it was probably about a year ago, I remember a video coming out of Buffalo of this older man standing there trying to hand a helmet back to police who were marching down on George Floyd supporter protesters. And they pushed him down to the ground. He cracked his head open, was bleeding, and they marched right past him without caring. That's Byron Brown's Buffalo?
You bet. So I want to actually...
Yeah, what happened there? Give me some context there, and what were the repercussions? What did Byron Brown do about that?
So the uprising started May 30th. Like that was around the country with George Floyd's death. And Buffalo also had similar protests. And the Brown administration imposed a curfew of like 8 o'clock. And of course, this is a very, the sun is up late at that time of year in Buffalo, and we're all outside. It's gorgeous outside. Nobody wants to go in, but now we're under curfew. And of course, the constitutionality of curfews have been questioned, but it was before anyone had a chance to do anything about it. And Martin wanted to demonstrate at that moment, and he's a peace activist, long time community activist, and so he and a few others, and I mean a few, were in front of City Hall right as curfew started, and the police, who were in full riot gear, and there were probably 50 of them or more, against a handful of non-violent protesters. And they pushed Martin. He fell. He was in the hospital for a month with a traumatic brain injury.
Jeez.
And the two officers were suspended for a month and charged with assault, but the charges ended up being dismissed. The Brown administration defended the violence of the cops repeatedly throughout the summer.
Wow. So wasn't, yeah, sorry, go ahead, continue.
He wasn't addressing the community concerns around racialized policing, and he was not addressing the immediate concerns of violent cops against folks' First Amendment rights. Right. So there was some attempt to push Brown's administration into some level of reform. but he was just not into it. He chose over and over to back the cops and not do anything about their violence, their racialized violence, their ongoing targeting of people of color in the city of Buffalo. So Byron Brown, instead of addressing police issues, has instead used fees and fines, traffic fines and the fees on those fines to balance the city budget. And so he has an interest in the cops over policing.
Right.
So violent crime in the city has dropped rather dramatically, but the cop activity is 48% ticket writing.
Right. So mostly just raising money for the city. And I can imagine, I don't have to do much investigating to imagine who it is that are getting these fines and fees most of the time.
Correct. He sets up checkpoints on the east side, which is 85% Black.
Wow. Okay. And the demographics of Buffalo, is it a fairly diverse city?
Well, it is very diverse. It is it is minority white.
Okay. All right. So he should be well aware of who voted him into office and that is, wow. But he's instead siding with the developers, the real estate people, and the police, which I'm assuming are a gigantic portion of the city budget as well.
Yes, I can't remember the exact percentage, but it is enormous and has increased substantially more than the pace of inflation over the course of his administration.
Wow.
So he's defunding the things that prevent crime.
Right, and funding the enforcement mechanisms, which are already overfunded.
And extracting the small amounts of cash that poor people have. So the city is has a poverty rate of about 30%. 43% of children are in poverty.
Wow.
Yeah. So the city is also heavily segregated through historic redlining and other wealth extraction activities, including urban redevelopment tactics in the 50s and 60s and 70s. Like, let's demolish major neighborhoods of middle-class Blacks and run a road through it.
Classic, yeah, classic.
You know, destroying health, destroying communities, destroying parks and recreational opportunities.
Jeez. So I feel like we have the context now for like what is happening in Buffalo in the last 2 decades of Byron Brown. So, you know, you have all these issues going on in Buffalo. Tactically on the ground, what then allowed India Walton to win this primary? You know, because if these problems been going around for a long time, what was different this time? Or what was that play on the ground that made this even possible?
Well, I think there were several things that contributed to Brown's loss of popularity, such as a disastrous school zone fine system, where, again, millions extracted within the first month of use. He also had zero COVID response. The entire Buffalo administration, Brown administration's COVID response was putting up door tags to check on your neighbors. Right? There was no leadership.
Check that they were alive?
Yeah, go check on your neighbors, make sure they're okay.
Oh, wow.
Which, yeah, we are the city of good neighbors. Of course we're doing that. We don't need cops handing out door tags for that purpose.
Yeah.
Right? Tacky,
yeah,
to say the least. And in addition, the lack of leadership around the police violence, the continued extraction of wealth from poor communities through fees and fines, all of these came together to create a moment in which he was very vulnerable. He didn't know it because he's just rolling along with his developer friends, but India grabbed that moment and had been so entwined in the broader progressive community that she was able to pull together a base of support immediately. Folks who have a lot of energy to change the city. And we have, we in that broader progressive context, we have a good 10 organizations who are putting out research, policy ideas, building housing, building community coalitions between communities, faith, and labor. We have a whole network that's in support and of these ideas. And then really the staff, the boards, the members of those organizations, they aren't doing anything through their 501c3 nonprofits, but all of them know what's going on and are taking, she decided to run. She was very serious and people said, okay, we're supporting you.
That's awesome. What's her biggest barrier right now? We have the election in a couple of days. Early voting's been going on for a while. What is her barrier to victory? And for context, Byron Brown is running a write-in campaign that appears to be largely funded by those same donors and developers and whatnot. What is her main barrier, I guess, to winning against a write-in campaign, which sounds like it should be easy?
Right. Under normal circumstances, it would, but of course he has all the name recognition, right? And a historical base of operations in the East Side. He has all of the money to pay people to be out there for him, right? Yeah. So he literally has a pop-up tent at each polling location with more than one person there to hand out the little stamps, pens, and give each person personal instruction in how to fill out the ballot.
Wow. So resources are his main advantage right now. Resources. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, hopefully India Walton can catch up resource-wise. Do you have any final message for voters in Buffalo? What do they need to know to prepare to vote here in the next couple of days?
Well, today's Saturday. The polls are open until 6 today. They're open noon to 6 tomorrow. You can vote at any of the 11 city locations. It's really cool. They take your name, they print out the ballot and hand it to you. So it's custom for your particular location. On Monday, it's a day off. On Tuesday, regular election day, the polls are open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And you have to vote at your neighborhood location, your normal location.
Gotcha. So you can vote Saturday, you can vote Sunday, anywhere. They'll print out your ballot as long as it's before they close. Monday, no voting. It is closed down. And then Tuesday, you have to show up to your specific neighborhood polling location. That sounds right?
That's correct.
All right. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for talking with me, Heidi. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too.